stop me, so I'd like to.
Want to check? I don't know his.
You just get thumbs up.
Yep, now we got a thumbs up in the building. All right, I'd like to call to order the EDC meeting for Tuesday, October 18th, 2022. Todd could not be here today, so I'll be in charge. Like I said, any problems, please tell me if I do anything wrong so I follow procedure correctly. And I guess the first thing on our agenda is can I get a motion to, did everyone get a chance to review? Oh, sorry.
You just do need to note that we're recording.
Oh, and we're recording. There we go. There we go. Thank you very much. So I guess the first thing we need to do is, can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Did everyone get a chance to review them? And a motion to approve the minutes from September 6th, 2022.
So moved.
Okay. We have
Second.
a second. So do we need a roll call, or
Yes, please.
Just a vote? All right, we can go around and vote, I guess. Zeph,
You
yes?
can just do a hand raise.
Oh, hand raise, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Yep, unanimous. The minutes approved for September 6th. Moving on, our agenda update from the 2002 special town meeting from Christy Williams, an update from last night's events.
So last night we got through Article 18. We did, most significant article was the library project, which needed a 2/3 vote to move forward, and it did not achieve the 2/3. So that project was contingent or included a grant that needed to be accepted within 6 months of award, and it was awarded in July. So it would need to be accepted by the town by January. So this was the attempt at doing that, and it did not achieve the 2/3. There's 2 articles that will come up tonight that I think are of specific interest to the Economic Development Committee. So one is the Economic Development Revolving Account, which Zach has spoken about before, and this committee voted to recommend, which is increasing the amount of the revolving account, the ability to expend from the revolving account up to $60,000, which is the full amount that we receive annually from electronic billboards. The other article that I think is of significance, I can't remember what number it is, but it's acceptance of a statute that would allow businesses or restaurants, so businesses that have on-premise liquor licenses, to serve alcohol between the hours of 10 a.m. and noon on a Sunday. And that's something that requires acceptance of a statute by the town meeting. And we have had businesses who have asked for that. So we did put that on the town meeting. It's a select board sponsored article. I don't know, I can't remember how it's phrased on our agenda. I don't know if it makes sense for the EDC to take a position since it hasn't come up at town meeting yet. It will come up tonight.
Yeah.
We don't have any votes listed on the agenda, so I feel like at this point, I think it would not be appropriate to take a vote. But thank you for that overview, Christy. The one other article that I would mention is there is an article pertaining to the plastic bag reduction bylaw. And the main reason why I'm bringing this up this time is to state that the Board of Health did do an outreach process to businesses when they were reviewing the article. They actually, I believe they held a public forum at the fire station in July of 2022. So businesses' feedback and input, was collected and taken into account, when they reviewed that article and put forth their proposed changes to town meeting.
Related to that article, at their pre-meeting before town meeting last night, the select board voted to submit an amendment to that article. Currently, under the effective date, it says that the bylaw will take effect 6 months following town meeting. So the amendment would say the bylaw or any amendments thereto. And that actually, when we look back at the amendments that happened at the annual town meeting, those actually took effect as soon as the Attorney General's office approved them, which was a bit difficult for us, myself, Zach, the Board of Health Director, to sort of target that date for businesses. And so we were kind of chasing the date. And so this just makes it simpler where it's 6 months following town meeting. The AG has to respond, I think it's 90 days, so we will have that approval, and then businesses will have more time to prepare. I know that the chair of the board did offer that amendment to the chair of the Board of Health, and I think he accepted it. So tonight, we'll hear whether or not that's part of their motion.
That seems fair to give businesses a chance to settle from a new, you know, especially if you have inventory and things to get rid of. It's
Right.
bigger businesses especially.
And there's the waiver provision remains in the
Yeah.
article as well.
And just one comment. So the head of the Board of Health, when they came before the Select Board, did mention as part of their review, so this bylaw includes, you know, plastic cutlery and other things that restaurants utilize or, you know, supply, and that would all then become recyclable in some way, or it has to be biodegradable. So it was mentioned that if there is an additional cost involved in trying to get all these materials or transfer from what they're currently using to this new material, potentially at some point, you know, if, you know, could the Economic Development Committee perhaps try and help them in that transition? Now, 6 months from this meeting would go beyond the annual town meeting, at least the date it's set at now. So potentially, based on feedback and whatever happens, there may be a question that we want to put forward or an article for the next town meeting if we decide that this is something that businesses need some assistance with. So just sort of food for thought right now.
Okay.
Is there pushback from businesses on the additional cost? I mean, you know, you hear they have to do this, so, you know.
I guess, I think it was just concerned that they weren't sure if there would be. So, you know, on their part, they're gonna go out and try and supply this stuff, and you know, right now, everybody's having issues with supply chain, and so is this something that a lot of towns or a lot of municipalities are moving towards, and so there might be a push to obtain a lot of it, and, you know, is there enough currently in the pipeline? So
Like everything.
Okay.
I think it would be something that, you know, needs to be determined. I think the other thing is on top of this amendment, the Select Board can always then give restaurants additional time if they come on an individual basis. We can try and defer this for them if they're having issues. At least that's how the article reads currently, I guess I should say, so.
Anything else on that topic, anyone? All righty. Moving on, we have an update on the Economic Development Forum from Sean and Christie again. So you guys have the floor still.
Start.
Should go right ahead.
The select board at their retreat in April made it a goal of the board to hold some sort of economic development forum. We've sort of talked about what that means, and I think it's really just part of it is to highlight the good work of this committee and the department. In 2013, we had the EDSAT survey, economic development. Thank you. Self-assessment tool. And so from that, we've identified sort of a list of things that the town could improve on. And so we had hoped that the Economic Development Committee through Zach could present to the select board kind of how far we've come since that 2013 EDSAT, and then also talk more about some of the goals that this committee has, inclusive of the ones that you've established for this year, but also the ones that came out of anything else that came out of the LRP or other sort of planning forums. So, and I know we had talked previously about our interest in getting before the select board to talk about the ambassador program and how people might become a part of that. So I think it really all works nicely together as we talk about the work of the EDC.
Yeah, I would add, so if you're interested in looking at that study that was done, it's on the town website underneath the select board. So you can find the presentation. It's 67 pages. But it was completed by, I think was it UMass Boston? And it was the Dukakis School. I guess it's affiliated with NSBU?
Northeastern University.
Northeastern?
Yeah.
Yeah, Northeastern University did it.
Major university.
Barry
in
Bluestone
Boston.
was the consultant. He was part of the business school there.
Yeah. So, but a very comprehensive, and took the feedback of developers, and talked about, sort of where Westborough stands versus other communities, and the changes that can be made, and a lot of those, I think, have been enacted since this was done, and, I believe the results show, but I think to go back and sort of review makes a lot of sense.
We talked about the opportunities for kind of doing something similar. So Zach looked at what opportunities there might be, and that fortunately was through a grant. That grant program doesn't exist anymore. But actually, in our conversations about, really the value of that tool was the outreach to the community and the business community, and given the community and the business community's input into the LRP, and then also the master plan, which has a whole economic development section. We feel like the community has really set some of those goals going forward. So I think Zach has or will put all of that into a presentation and present.
And I guess one other thing I would mention is in the study, it mentions how the Economic Development Committee was really not part of the last master plan. And so now, here we are, we've just come out with the new master plan. We know there are components within that directly related to the Economic Development Committee, so there's a real opportunity for us to get involved and enact some of these things through that plan. So I think that sort of the two come together nicely and generate a real opportunity.
Okay, great. Anything else from anyone? Comments, concerns, questions? Okay, excellent. So we're going to move on to an update of the fiscal year 23 goals from Zach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And as a just follow-up to the Economic Development Forum discussion, we are planning to present to the Select Board on November 2nd, so that'll be in a couple of weeks. Strongly encourage you all to either attend or tune in, if you're interested in seeing, all of the accomplishments of the EDC that have predated myself and, some and many of you. So, okay, so essentially my goal and aim with this presentation is to just check in with the EDC on the status of what goals we set for fiscal year 23 back in June. So if you all recall, in June of 2022, we had a couple of meetings where we discussed what our goals might be for this fiscal year, and we voted and approved 5 goals moving forward. One is to continue implementing our LRP initiatives at about a rate of 2 to 3 projects per year, and we can talk a little bit more about that soon. Continuing to revitalize EDC outreach with particular emphasis on the ambassador program and the return of in-person events. Develop smaller walkable green spaces and small destination areas beyond the downtown center in specific targeted areas where retail and restaurants thrive. Exploring opportunities to expand the Business Assistance Grant Program, and supporting the Master Plan Implementation Committee as needed. Goal number 3 is actually a Master Plan item. I had suggested looking there for things to consider for goals, and the board voted to move forward with this one. So I think it's important to set goals, but it's even more important to check in on their status and make sure that things are getting done in order to actually realize the intent of these goals. And so I just wanted to come before you all and kind of give you a rundown of where things stand for each of these goals, and some of the work that I'll be doing, and also some of the work that I would like your help doing going forward to make some of these happen. The first goal is continuing to implement LRP initiatives at a rate of about 2 to 3 projects per year. And so What you'll see on the screen here is 7 LRRP projects, including the 4 that staff prioritized for phase 1 implementation and 3 of the 4 that staff prioritized for phase 2 implementation. For each of these, or for many of these, we've already taken steps toward implementing these projects, and in the cases of 2, we are near complete, if not complete already on some of these projects. For example, for the outdoor dining retail policy, as you know, that policy was adopted by the Select Board in May of 2022. Since adopting the policy, we've received 2 applications and are working with those applicants on some of the more technical issues of those applications, like insurance coverages and like the spec sheets for the proposed outdoor customer areas. For next steps for this project, Fred and I are going to be diligently working to continue processing, I guess, in air quotes, pre-existing non-conforming applications. So applications from businesses that before adopting the policy had some sort of outdoor customer area or merchandising area out on the street or sidewalk. And we're working with those applicants to get their applications in. Additionally, we want to prepare a marketing plan and some materials for the 2023 season. As you may recall, the outdoor customer area policy runs on a seasonal basis from April 30th to November 1st. And so as we look towards next spring, we want to make sure that all the businesses that are either pre-existing non-conforming or want to do a new outdoor customer area are aware of the policy and are prepared to submit an application in a time frame that'll work for them. Moving on to the online business directory, as you know, that went live very recently in August of 2022. We prepared some marketing materials and distributed some of those across town offices like the Senior Center, the library, Forbes Building. What I will be working towards is continuing to identify ways to promote the directory to users, either through a larger marketing campaign or things like, I know that the school's backpack program have been mentioned in the past, slipping inserts into tax bills have been mentioned in the past, as well as, maybe putting a notice on one of the digital billboards on Route 9 or Route 495. So those are going to be some of the things that we're going to be doing to make sure that we don't just build this directory and it loses steam, but that people are actually aware of it as a resource and that we're encouraging folks to use it, encouraging folks to shop local. Another project, which is actually coming very soon, is the stamp card marketing program. This is a project which we received funding from the Economic Development Revolving account to fund. Initial planning is complete, and we're planning to launch this in conjunction with the Winter Stroll beginning on Friday, November 25th, 2022. For those of you who need a little refresh, this project is a project where we would essentially be doing like a shop local loyalty campaign where any participating businesses in Westborough would get a bunch of cards. Customers, after making a purchase, could get the unique stamp for that business on them, and then after making 10 purchases at participating Westborough businesses over the period of about a month, we're going to run this until January 1st. They'll be entered in a raffle to win a prize. I think it's a $150 gift card to the participating business of their choice. For this, we're going to start recruiting businesses to participate, and we're going to be doing that in conjunction with a lot of our normal outreach for the Winter Stroll event. We'll be promoting the campaign through a multi-channel approach to users, so things like social media, encouraging some of the Facebook groups in town that exist to share our posts, posts on the website, and also outreach in conjunction with local media as well, such as Westborough TV or the Community Advocate. For this next project, the Minority Women Business Outreach and Support Plan, I have been working with the UMass Boston Collins Center to finalize a scope of services for this project. We have reached a final scope of services in October of 2022, and they've outlined a pretty clear timeline with a lot of both assessment and planning for how we can execute this project, which would wrap up in June of 2023 if we're able to get the contract executed and kick off in December of 2022. Next steps here are primarily logistic, executing the agreement with the Collins Center, and then preparing for project kickoff. For wayfinding, this project is currently on hold because there's a bill pending in the legislature which might create some funding opportunities for this project. Previously, ARPA money had been allocated in May of 2022 for the wayfinding project, and we've applied for an MDI grant to fund the design for the wayfinding signage in June of 2022. Until some of these other funding sources shake out and we know, what money to expect or not to expect, we're putting this on hold, so that we don't, use ARPA funds for projects that might have other funding sources. Another project is implementing pop-ups and vacant storefronts. So far, I've had some conversations with third-party vendors who can provide some technical assistance by way of planning, marketing, and pop-up recruitment for these types of spaces. We've recently been made aware of another round of the REDO, Regional Economic Development Organization grant program, which we're going to be exploring as a potential funding source for this project. And then the last project, which I anticipate, and I only put the projects up here that I anticipate, we might, do some activities on within the next fiscal year, is hold a night market. So far, we haven't, really done anything on this project. But over the next couple of months, what I'm going to start doing is researching examples, best practices, and try to develop an implementation plan for us to implement this sometime in the spring. And so that's a little bit of an overview of where some of our LRP projects stand. I would expect that by the end of fiscal year 23, we will have completed the stamp card marketing program as well as the outreach and support plan, and one of these three initiatives, most likely the night market. I'll pause for a moment, take a step back. If any of you guys have any questions or feedback, I'd be happy to answer them or address those points.
Yeah, thanks. Good presentation. Thanks. Comment and a question. First one, regarding wayfinding. The CMRPC has done a lot of wayfinding studies for other communities. You might reach out to them to see about other funding sources.
That's a great tip. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, and take a look at some of the plans that they've done with other communities. Question. The vacant pop-up, I should say the pop-ups and vacant storefronts. What is the REDO grant?
So the REDO grant is a grant program that actually began last year. REDO grant is typically the mechanism by which our regional economic development organizations are funded by the Commonwealth. So folks like the 495 Metro West Partnership or the Middlesex 3 Coalition actually get a lot of money from their operating budgets and for any special projects that they do through the REDO grant program. Beginning last year, the state expanded the REDO grant program to include project attachments from municipalities within the REDO service areas. And so it was through that grant program that we actually got the funding for the online business directory. So we submitted a project attachment to the 495 Partnerships application. The state reviews both the REDO's application and the project attachments separately, and they selected a certain number of those project attachments to fund. It caught me a little bit by surprise that they were doing this again this year. It was my understanding this would be a one-time funding source, but we received notification late last week that they will be doing a REDO for fiscal year 23. There are relatively stringent requirements about what types of projects are eligible for funding. REDO will not fund new construction or any kind of construction project, studies or assessments. One of the areas that they specifically called out in eligible uses was the continuation or initiation of pop-up businesses. And so we felt like looking at our LRP projects and what else is in our funding pipeline, that this might be a good fit for that program. But we're still in the early stages of figuring out whether or not we'll submit an application or if our project will be entirely eligible.
So the money comes directly through these organizations like the 495 Partnership or
sort of. The money technically comes from MOBD. The 495 Metro West Partnership acts as a pass-through organization that administers the grant funds.
Do you apply to those organizations or directly to the program?
Technically, you apply directly to the program, but by submitting an attachment to their application. So for the 495 Metro West Partnership acts as the lead applicant for their REDO grant application, but each of the project attachments, there's like a RFP from MOBD that outlines what types of projects should be funded, what to consider including in your project attachments, and then they have I guess a separate application for the project attachments.
Does anybody know if Raj Janae still sits on the MLBD board?
I don't know.
Okay. Just trying to give you a leg up, that's all.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions, comments, or feedback?
The only thing I could think of is with the online business director, we're promoting it right now. We have an event coming up, which you'll probably get to in the next part of your conversation, will be the downtown trick or treating, where last year we ended up with, say, 500 families walking around the downtown, and, it's not quite putting in a backpack, but if we had something to, put with certain people to take, if they're looking to see what's in town, it might be a way of addressing people that have, the money, the people that are spending money in town, the people with children and, people with families that have the expendable money, might be a good way to let them be aware of this service that we can provide, just as a,
I think it's a
without
great
promoting.
idea. I really appreciate you mentioning that. I think, especially, I think definitely. I'm going to be, I will be going around to all the participating businesses at the end of this week to give them like a laminated printed thing to stick on their door so that folks know which businesses are participating, which aren't. And so we have enough of the Shop Westborough
Cards.
brochures or cards that we have that, I could swing by to each of them and say, hey, if you're willing to hand these out as well or have them at the ready, that would be fantastic. And so,
Yeah, just a
I
thought,
think it's
just
a
to
great
get it
idea.
out there.
The Minority Women Business, what is, just a little, because I'm not familiar with what that plan is.
So as part of the LRRP, when we did that study about a year ago, one of the recommendations that we developed was to create a plan of actionable, tactical things that the town could do to better engage and then better support underrepresented business communities, such as minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. One of the qualitative learnings that we had from the LRP was that there was a sense that there was a need to do something to support our underrepresented business communities, but we couldn't really discern what. And, part of that we felt was because, we didn't have the right connections to the right communities and didn't, have the right, I guess, knowledge to, really engage those communities. And so one of the recommendations from the LRP was to seek technical assistance for creating a plan to support and to improve our outreach to underrepresented business communities.
Are you working with the CWE here in town?
They were engaged as part of the LRRP. We did not engage them as part of our sort of vendor selection process and ultimately opted with the Collins Center because the Collins Center is exempt from many Massachusetts state procurement laws because they are technically an instrument of the Commonwealth. And so it just makes it a little bit easier to work with them. They also are beefing up some of their diversity and inclusion expertise. And so we felt like they were a good partner for us to look to for this type of work. Great. Here. Now on to some of our other goals. Goal number 2 is continuing to revitalize EDC outreach. And so, I just wanted to go review some of the recent activities that we've done is, creating the job description. I've actually had conversations with 2 interested candidates since we created the job description, one of which came from an EDC referral, so thank you to that person. And I've reached out to some businesses for meetings in the last month. In terms of next steps, I have next steps for both myself and for the EDC. One is if each of you could send me, let's say by the December meeting, I think all of the action items in these slides are goals for me at least to accomplish by the December meeting. If you could send me the name and contact information of one person who I should approach to be an EDC ambassador, that would be incredibly helpful. And then, we can continue to build the EDC ambassador ranks. Additionally, if you could send me a suggestion and a contact for a business that we should approach for a meeting, that would be incredibly helpful as well. Generating leads for both of these 2 positions, I think, is the greatest challenge towards revitalizing the ambassador program, and I also think it's something where the EDC and our board members have the greatest strength. And so, I think it made sense to, ask you guys all for help in terms of doing this. For me, my goal is, as I said, by December, to recruit at least 2, ideally 3 ambassadors. I'll also be, I know in a couple of previous meetings, some tips and suggestions have been discussed, such as like sending the job description to the Quarter 9495 Chamber, engaging their ambassadors to see if they have any leads or interest in becoming an EDC ambassador, and so we'll do that as well. And then schedule at least one, ideally 2 outreach meetings in November. So I think, marrying all this together, we're on a path to get back to regular meetings with a robust bench of ambassadors. The next project is another one where I'm hoping the EDC members will be willing to lean in. Goal number 3 is to develop smaller green spaces and destination areas outside of the downtown area, specifically in places where retail and restaurants already thrive. For recent activities, we haven't done anything on this one yet, so there are no recent activities completed to date. But what I would like each of the EDC members to do for me, ideally by December, is to send me a short vision for what you think these destination areas might look like and what they ought to achieve. And then additionally, if you can send me one idea for a potential site for one of these destination areas, that would be tremendously helpful as well. I think while this is a great master plan initiative, and I think we're all behind the spirit of what we're trying to do, I think there's still a little bit more work to be done in terms of visioning and actually, fleshing out what this could look like. On my end, what I'm going to be doing is creating a compendium of examples, best practices, and case studies for staff and EDC to review, sources of inspiration, if you will, for what this project could look like. I'm going to continue consider the process for how sites will be selected and how many we can support. We don't want to say that we're going to do 20 of these things. We're only going to have the capacity to do 1 or 2. And then identifying what locations will become any of these sites is also going to be very important, because we want to be mindful of conflicts of interest and creating an equitable, transparent process. And then building a list of potential sites, which I will use your input for destination areas beyond downtown. I know I've gone through 2 goals pretty quickly, so I'll pause again to see if you guys have any questions, feedback, or concerns.
So, do you have any examples of what a destination area would be? Is it the Bewalt Trail, or a restaurant, or a park?
Part of the reason why I'd like everyone to go through this exercise is because I think there's a lot of flexibility in what it could mean. I think one example that I've seen, and at least how I have interpreted this goal to mean, is I forget which community, but another municipality had experimented with doing like public art presentations in like the parking lots of retail shopping centers. So putting up public art installations on the perimeter as like a draw for people to come, see the art and then drive some foot traffic in the retail area. So, it could be something like that. Obviously something like Bewalt is much larger scale and probably a lot harder to tackle within the time frame of a year. From what I've seen, and albeit relatively limited, these tend to be smaller, like easy to implement, quick, kind of flexible type installations. I hope that answers your question.
No, that's what I was looking for. I wasn't sure of the scale, or
yeah, I would think smaller scale.
Is it like a regional attraction or a local, like a art exhibit in a parking lot or a store or something? Yeah.
And this could be a mix of public and private land, I'm assuming, some sort of work with retail or private land as well as, or are we looking just at public land?
I would think it would have to involve some sort of private sector collaboration.
Okay, just wanted to check.
Cool. I will move on then. Goal number 4, which is explore opportunities to expand the grant program. I won't say much about this because this, the article has been drafted, placed in the warrant. AFC actually, the Advisory Finance Committee, AFC actually recommended that voters approve the article by unanimous vote on October 3rd. This article is up for discussion at the special town meeting tonight, which begins at 7 p.m. If any of you in the room or watching are Westborough residents, I would strongly encourage you to attend to support the EDC's article. And so, we'll know by tomorrow the result of how this article pans out at special town meeting. If it fails, I'll take some time with Fred and other staff to brainstorm some other ways that we might consider to expand the grant program. And then goal number 5 is to support the master plan implementation as needed. I remember when we had created this goal, the idea was to create something more flexible so that we could lean in, when called upon by the master plan implementation committee. Since that discussion, the master plan implementation committee has been formed, and I believe they have selected members from August to September for that board. They're just getting started on their work. And I will continue to liaise with planning department staff to determine next steps on this one. And with that, a bit of an update on our fiscal year 23 goals. Definitely some action items for the EDC, some action items for myself. And when we come back in December, we can check in and see where things stand on each of these.
That's great.
That's good.
Any additional questions or anything for Zach? No. Thank you very much, Zach, for everything there.
Thank you.
Oh,
Nope.
and actually, sorry, while I'm up here, I did just want to make a quick plug for the Main Street Trick or Treat event.
Oh, yeah.
And I just wanted to
Great
show you
job going
guys
to the other side
event.
of the bridge, too. I think the businesses on that side of the bridge will be much happier than they were with you last year. I think some of them were.
Let's see if I can get.
Well, it was a phenomenal success last year.
Yeah, last year was
so-
out of, hopefully enough candy.
Kids are so excited about my granddaughter's in first grade, and they're just so excited about it. It's just like,
Last year was nuts. CVS and Roach Brothers ran out of candy. Like, you couldn't
Yeah.
physically find candy in this town on the afternoon of that trick or treat.
it's crazy.
Well, all I can tell you, Ferris Flowers has been asking me about this for months, and she's got some kind of display she's putting out. We don't know what that is yet, but we're looking forward to that.
I'm having minor technical difficulties, so I encourage you to look on Facebook on the EDC's page or on Westborough Recreation's page to see the event map and the list of participating businesses. We have 38 businesses and nonprofit organizations on both sides of the bridge, going up Milk Street, South Street, East, West Main Street, and it should be a really fun event. So,
Zach, just a question. Do you know of any of the businesses that are giving out anything other than candy?
I do not. I've been encouraging businesses to have either business cards or some kind of small marketing material to hand out as well, or to drop in kids' trick-or-treat bags as well. But I'm not aware of any businesses that are giving anything extra. I did hear one business might give out their own trick-or-treat bags, like big bags for trick-or-treating, but I think they only had 30 or 50, so they only give it first come, first served basis.
Yeah, I
We'll
think
give 'em
it's a
that.
good opportunity, because Halloween has always been for the kids and treats for the children, but it's the parents that take their children on the trick-or-treating walk. So I think it would be good for the business to realize that they can cultivate future customers and the parents.
Of course.
Certainly. I think from the feedback we received from participating businesses last year, folks found the event to be very successful in bringing new customers into their business. There's nothing like your 10 or 11-year-old child dragging you around downtown to trick-or-treat to help you discover, all the businesses that exist here that, you might have never driven by, So it's the intent.
The only thing I would make sure is, as one of the businesses on Milk Street, is make sure that the police are well involved, because last year it turned into a bit sticky for about the first 25 minutes before the police got in and started directing traffic around the rotary for the...
So that's a good point, Mark. I've already asked Chief Laurie about
Yeah.
being involved this year, so we'll make sure he gets a map and he's aware of the different businesses that'll participate.
Yeah, because right around the rotary, all the kids running across the street and everything, it got right at rush hour, it gets bad enough down there for an adult to cross the street, nevertheless someone in a mask and all the other things that go on.
Well, again, we'll follow up with Chief.
Yeah.
Great.
Great, thank you. Zach, thank you for a great presentation. Thanks, guys. Moving forward, we're going to the Planning Department report from Jim, if you have anything for us.
Sure, just to keep you updated on what's going on in front of the planning board, the public hearing for the Hyundai dealership at 180-182 Turnpike Road is still continued to the 25th of this month, which is the next planning board meeting, if you're interested in that. The developer has been working with the abutters to work out abutting property owner issues. I think we're going to come to resolution on that. Hopefully, all of the issues will be solved on the 25th, and we can move forward with permitting that site. One of the elements of the project site is obtaining an easement for the B-Wall Trail, and the property owner is working with the town to put together an easement. They've said that they're friendly to providing an easement to the town for the B-Weld, so that's very encouraging. We're going to have a new application for an animal hospital out at Speedway Plaza, that's 290 Turnpike Road. It's for a company that will be coming from the West Coast, actually from Oregon, to develop a franchise animal hospital. It's not like a kennel where they're going to keep animals overnight. It's day treatment, very similar to the operation that was permitted at 1 Oak Street about 6 months ago. The planning board article for dimensional regulations for the library failed last night, or I should say was passed over because the library article failed and it was no longer necessary. That's my update for now.
Hey, Jim, can you give us an update on the Master Plan Implementation Committee? I guess a committee's been seated and...
Yeah, at the 25th at our next meeting, they'll set the first meeting date.
Okay.
There are still some people that have not been sworn in, so if you're familiar with anyone that applied for the implementation committee, might reach out to them just to nudge them. We've sent them a letter, we've sent them emails. We will probably hold our first meeting despite any of those that haven't been sworn in. And anyone that isn't sworn in hopefully will attend, but they won't be able to vote until they are sworn in. A lot of people don't realize that it's necessary to go to the town clerk and officially be sworn in to be a member of an appointed committee. They've been informed. We'll nudge them again by email again.
I think that's part of the learning curve of not understanding how everything works, and, you know, so I think that's important. That something I learned as going into this a year and a half ago, so it's, you know, not everyone, it's assumed, you know, as a parent of two 13-year-olds, you assume they understand things until they look you in the face and they have no idea what's going on. Thank you very much, Jim.
Sure.
Anyone else have questions for Jim or anything? No, nothing? Okay. Moving forward, the Community Development Department report from Zach and Fred.
Thank you. For new businesses, Planet Fitness is going to be very close to opening soon in West Meadow Plaza. Those of you might also know that Swansky's Bake Shop, which had been closed for a couple months on East Main Street, reopened this past weekend. In terms of our programs and events, as I had stated, the Main Street Trick or Treat is planned for Tuesday, October 25th from 4 to 7 p.m. Well, we have 38 businesses and nonprofits participating. The Winter Stroll is planned for Sunday, November 27th from 2 to 5 p.m. And then there are a number of partner organizations that are holding events in October and November, such as the Quarter 9 495 Chamber is having a ribbon cutting for the Little Gym, which is a new business that's opening in Bay State Commons. That was originally supposed to be this past Saturday, but it's being rescheduled. There is a special town meeting tonight at 7 p.m. Mass Econ is having a forum on the gubernatorial transition from 4 to 6 p.m. on October 27th. The Quarter 9 495 Chamber of Commerce is having a 6-chamber business and social hour from 4:30 to 7 p.m. on October 27th. On November 3rd, the 495 Metro West Partnership is having a forum with updates on the I-495 I-90 interchange improvements project at 8:30 a.m. on November 3rd. I'd strongly encourage anyone from this board to attend that meeting. It's a very important project. Specifically for economic development in Westborough. And then on November 17th, the 495 Metro West Partnership is having its annual conference. Timing for that is TBD. And on November 10th, Mass Econ is having its corporate welcome reception from 5 to 7 p.m. If you're interested in attending on behalf of the EDC, please let me know. Similarly, the Metro West Chamber of Commerce is having its annual meeting and gala from 5 to 8 p.m. on November 16th. And likewise, if you're interested in attending, please let me know and we can register you. That's all I have, Fred, unless there's anything you'd like to
Yeah,
add.
just one quick thing that came up last night. Happy to say that Chief Purcell has made an announcement on the replacement for Deputy Chief Fursky. So that individual is the, Captain Steve Doucette. If any of you know him, I urge you to reach out and congratulate him. The big thing for us is that, my understanding from the chief is that he should be helping to fill the role that Chief Fursky had with fire prevention. So they've had a lot of work recently to try to keep up with that, with the absence of Deputy Chief Fursky, so hopefully that'll help with, especially the commercial end. As people like Mark and Mark would know, it's tough to get inspections when we're down employees, so we're happy to see that announcement's been made.
That's great. Great news. Okay. Great, anything else, Zach, Fred? You guys, that's everything?
That's it.
Great, thank you very much, guys. Anything, so we move on to other business. If anyone has anything they would like to bring to the committee for new business or something they want to discuss?
Just a request. Zach, can you send the location of some of those things, particularly the Mass Econ Forum? I'm interested in that one.
Yes, I'll prepare something out and send it to the
That'd
full
be great.
board.
I wrote the dates down. I just want the location. Thanks.
No worries.
Yeah, outside of that, I think the only thing I would say is just on outreach, especially with the outdoor seating permits and stuff like that. I know it's been a slow-moving process. As someone that sits on this committee and knows about these forms and everything that goes on, it wasn't something that was easily attainable, easily accessible, not say easily, but, not something that fell in front of my face. And as a small business owner, it's hard sometimes to keep track of all the things you're trying to do. So if you're trying to get people to submit these forms, to know where they exist, how to get to them, that they actually have to fill them out, it's can be a little bit daunting. When you talk to I talk to some people downtown, I ask them how they're doing with the forms, and some, I get a mixed review of what is that. I saw it. It's in the pile over here on my desk. So I try to encourage people to fill these forms out. I'm not going to fill them out with them, but, try and get people to go forward. So just the outreach of, like I said, as someone that sits on this committee knew about the form, I reached out to you directly to get one. So that's how I found out about it. There was no like, oh, I just have a business here. I'd like to have a table. This is all I need to do. I think that side of things, sometimes people get a little discouraged when they find out after the fact that something has to get fixed. So I don't know the best way to reach out, but I know it's something we need definitely to improve on if that's something we want to.
Well, so Mark, I'll just respond to that. Zach and I personally went to the businesses.
Oh, I know.
And handed the forms to them, and Zach continues to work with them.
Yeah.
If there's other ways we can reach out to the business, we'll do that too.
Yeah, well, I know you guys went out. That's why I'm not knocking what we did. I
Right.
just know that from talking to people, from when I talk to small people that I talk to, at least I feel like some know, some don't know. They know there's a form.
The ambassador committee is going to really help with that. So we get a
Yeah.
robust ambassador committee, and they are charged with going out, and here's your schedule, and, really giving them some really good action items, and don't just, here you're an ambassador, but actually here's your goals for the month kind of thing. I think that'll be really
Yeah.
helpful for people.
Just to try, because
Sure.
I think most people want to do the right thing. I think at the end of the day, most businesses will fill whatever form out. They want to make sure they're complying with the town. It's just making sure they understand what they're trying to do, I think, is the most important side of things.
It is a relatively heavy lift for all these businesses because they're one-person shows.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with you
Yeah,
there.
exactly. So it's not, once again, when we talk about not knowing what goes on in town, it's, you're not knowing what you know until you start looking at a form and who's this and what do I want to be? Who am I on this form? Am I the, it sounds, it sounds silly, but when you're smaller, it's, a little harder to go through. So I just thought I'd mention that. Anything else that we didn't cover or would like to put in here?
Is there any update on the theater? That's a great place for the green spaces for walkability and all that. Like, I was thinking pop up over there to support Red Heat and some of the other places over in that area. Any update there?
The board has a special executive session next week to review the criteria and likely make a decision. I would expect an announcement from the board in one of the November meetings.
Okay. If anything else, anyone for anything else? If not, could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate your help today.
Mark, well done.
Thank you.